Welcome back to the Performance Prescription Lab Special Edition Paris Olympics episodes, where we dive deep into the world of Olympics through the lens of athletic health, performance, and clean sport. I'm Jess, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host Neil Hum. Paris Olympics 2024 concluded with a spectacular closing ceremonies in France on August 11th. And it was just amazing to see. I think we kind of showed the pride of the world celebrating excellence, friendship, and respect. Neil Hum, any particular part from the closing ceremonies that really stayed with you?
If I give an answer as like a normal person, Nilhan, I would say the show in LA.
Yes.
Just to celebrate that the Olympics are coming to LA. But as a sports pharmacist and also a female amateur athlete, I found the medal ceremony for the women's marathon taking place during the closing ceremony very impressive. If our listeners remember, we mentioned that Paris Olympics were one of the Olympics after many years where there was gender parity. So that was equal. There were equal amount of athletes joined, female athletes and male athletes. So this medal ceremony of women's marathon taking place was to commemorate this particular situation. And there was the national anthem of Netherlands was played for the Dutch gold medalist Sifan Hassan. It was a breathtaking performance to watch Sifan Hassan. She won gold in the women's marathon, and the sprint she had in the final 200 meters, where she beat Ethiopian athlete Tix Asefa by just 3 seconds. What about you, Jess?
Yeah, I thought that I kind of joked with my husband after all the events that stuff came so close. You know, the 100-meter men's race, like there's so many races that came down to hundredths, thousandths of a second, you know, super small percentages. I was like, yeah, the women's marathon's going to come down to a sprint to the finish. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I was totally joking. But I thought that was a perfect conclusion to the Olympics of like, just, you know, they were good sports with each other, you know, showcasing the strengths and so much stuff out of the women's, the female athletes. And I found just the stories of the female athletes being really empowering. I thought the coolest part was like the 2 pregnant athletes were probably my favorite. And then at closing ceremonies, just seeing all the athletes and the camaraderie and the happiness and the joy of them really getting to celebrate what they accomplished and enjoying the moment, I think was pretty special to see.
I agree. It's very encouraging. Female athletes like us, future female athletes, younger athletes, it just gave us great messages and great joy. The Olympics have ended, but
I know.
like us, people are still buzzing. The stories are still going, and everyone is still talking about some highlights. And
Yes.
in today's Olympic special episodes, what we will be doing is to explore some of the key medical events because we are sports pharmacists. So we wanted to talk about what happened to these fantastic elite athletes, and is there any stories that we can learn from for our own athletic journey, for our listeners' athletic journey?
Yeah. I think so many Olympic athletes have trained to overcome significant health challenges, even some during the Olympics, hearing stories we hadn't heard of or just overcoming challenges during the Olympics to reach the pinnacle of their sport. I think one, and as you asked me about like closing ceremonies, I think it brought everyone's attention was like Simone Biles suddenly wearing a boot after having competed and won multiple medals. I think, you know, obviously she wore the boot out of precaution for her calf, but just interesting to see, you know, these athletes both overcoming and also dealing with injury and sickness and still competing at some of the highest levels. So in this episode, I think we're going to kind of break down our top 10 athlete health related topics from Paris. So I think I'm going to start with one of my favorites. And I think it doesn't so much start with an athlete, even though I believe most people will say dancers and artists are athletes, which I totally agree, which we saw in breakdancing. But I think the topic to start with was Celine Dion and her comeback from her condition known as stiff person syndrome. And like I said, she's not an athlete. I think it's one of the biggest stories of strength of the fact that her performance at the opening ceremonies of 2024. Celine Dion had not performed since diagnosis of stiff person syndrome had first basically made her cancel all of her live shows years ago. And the syndrome, in case you don't know, is basically a neurological condition that causes muscles to spasm, and it primarily affects the brain, the spinal cord, and causes muscle stiffness, posture problems, and sensory issues. And I'm sure as a singer and an artist, that has to be so frustrating that your body, you just can't have it do what you're used to be, what you're used to. And she's been pretty outspoken, I feel like, about her battle with this and wanting to come back to the stage. I think in an interview, I remember her reading and saying that she's not going to let the stiff person syndrome control her life, and that she's going to come back on stage when she's ready, and that her vocal cords will not scare me. And she's like, I'm going to be ready for this and ready to hit those high notes. And I feel like she did such an incredible job of showcasing coming back that I feel like is a perfect person to highlight one of our athlete health related topics from Paris, because it really does showcase, the resiliency of an athlete and their willingness to overcome syndromes.
What a mental strength, Jess, especially her mental strength to go on that show. Everyone is watching you. It's like a top show. So very, very inspiring.
And to perform from the Eiffel Tower, I think I would just be nervous standing up there.
Exactly.
Standing, not to mention singing in the rain.
Exactly. She has great control over her, I think, mindset. And
yes.
With all the experience, and especially with the disease, it's not just you're performing, but you're also battling against a tough disease.
Yeah.
So she was our inspiration. Thank you for sharing that. And speaking about the mental strength, I also want to mention athletes that fought mental health issues before the Olympics, at the Olympics, and battling back from setbacks. Let's continue moving on with the mental health topic. We talk about Simone Biles, and one of the biggest headline of the Tokyo 2020 Olympics was Simone Biles pulling out of the competition. She protected her mental well-being through that. And Biles was suffering from the twisties, as gymnasts call, and even they say this is a forbidden word to mention when they are practicing. She experienced twisties. It was a mental block that caused her to lose herself in the air whenever she attempted to twist. She mentioned, I watched her Netflix documentary, and she mentioned there that she forgot her traditional or just everyday moves because of the stress, especially when you're in the air doing such risky jumps and poses. It's so dangerous. It may take even your life. Biles risks seriously injuring herself if she would try push through. Yet has become very vocal about the importance of mental health after Tokyo and prior to Paris. Quoting in an interview, she said, I worked on myself a lot. I still do therapy weekly. This was all over the news in Paris as well. She was criticized heavily because she has done such decision. So I think she has done a great mental work up until Paris. And even after winning gold in team, she created a lot of commitment to herself and her therapy sessions, including one that morning prior to competing. Injuries in sports often bring not just physical pain, they come with mental challenges that test the fortitude of the athletes. The first step on the path of resilience involves embracing adversity in unwavering mental toughness. Olympians and elite athletes are renowned for their ability to channel setbacks into opportunities for growth. This mental resilience becomes a driving force that propels them forward, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. During Paris, multiple athletes commented or even highlighted techniques such as visualization, especially US gymnasts, Positive self-talk, this was seen on most of the athletes. Journaling, Nicola Olisager, the Australian high jumper, and mindfulness become tools to maintain focus, boost confidence, and foster a resilient mindset. The International Committee has also done its particular focus on the mental health. Then they introduced a comprehensive mental health support program, including a dedicated mind zone in the Olympic Village. I've seen some posts from some of the athletes. They were focusing, listening to music. There was specific lighting in this mind zone area. So mental health is just becoming a huge priority, and a great story from some of the athletes like Simone Biles, who battled through and become one of the most decorated gymnasts in the history.
Yeah. I think it was really, I love the fact that they highlighted so much of the mental health, because for so long it's been a stigma of not talking about it. And now having top level athletes showcasing, how they're getting through and how they're getting to such a high level, and, giving truth to the, hey, I talk to myself in a positive way. Hey, I write everything down. I think Gabby Thomas, the US sprinter, she showed her training journal prior to maybe the Olympic trials, and showing like what she writes after training and all the positive stuff, and just how they become so resilient and be able to face, when obstacles come up, like it rains or something doesn't go their way, how they are able to channel that into being productive. But I was talking to high school athletes and asking them what did they enjoy and what did they see, or lessons did they learn from the athletes. And a couple of the girls actually did mention, mental health. And that was really powerful, I think, to hear, was high school athletes recognizing top level athletes needing mental health, and that is something that's okay at every level. So I love the fact that, there was so many good mental health stories and different tools that athletes use that were highlighted throughout the Olympics. I think one thing that, kind of transitioning into mental health is sidelines, injuries. And so one thing that, one of the other top headlines that we saw was ACL injuries. And as we know, ACL injuries are much more common in female athletes. In fact, several Olympians missed this year's games due to ACL injuries. The U.S. Forward Cameron Brink tore her ACL in her left knee in June. So just a month before Paris started. So she was unable to compete on the U.S. 3x3 basketball squad. And Brinks came out, and basically her story's not really unique, unfortunately, for most female athletes, as ACL tears are very common in sport, and especially in female sports. The American Medical Society for Sports Medicine says that ACL tears occur in both genders, but females are at higher risk, with college basketball and female soccer athletes having a threefold higher risk than their male counterparts. And I think it's just something to be aware of, both in the occurrence, and there's a lot of research going into why is there such a discrepancy in ACL injuries in females versus males. And some of it may have to do with hormones, because obviously there's evidence showing that high levels of estrogen can increase like ligament laxity, so how flexible it is. And that increased laxity is associated with tears. Then there's another theory that after puberty, women's quadricep muscles continue to strengthen while their hamstrings stay basically the same, creating a muscular imbalance. There's other theories out there, about hip angles, different things like that, but definitely something to be aware of. But it was cool to see those athletes that have had ACL tears come back and still be able to perform at the top of their game. So the one that highlights the most is going to be the Brazilian gymnast, Rebecca Andrade. And she won gold on the floor in Paris, and also got gold in the vault in Tokyo 2020, after she has already suffered 3 ACL tears. And she tore her ACL for the third time in June of 2019. And basically, because Tokyo was delayed, she was able to come back and compete in Tokyo. But she and her stories are just impressive. And we learned a lot about perseverance and having faith. And again, tying back into the mental health of how do you get through an injury as an athlete, and being able to come back and perform is just pretty impressive. So something to be aware of as a female athlete is ACL tears.
Yeah, and just coming back to Simone Biles and female athlete inspirations, have you seen when there were all black podium of Simone Biles, Rebecca Andrade when she got the gold? What was the name of the third US gymnast?
Jordan Biles.
Yes. So they were just supporting each other in this podium. So that was like one of the highlights of female athletes supporting each other. I really
Yeah,
find it inspiring.
thought that was super cool, and I thought it was neat watching the event finals. You could
Yeah.
hear in the background them cheering for each other,
Yeah.
like they wanted the other one to do well. And so it was cool to hear the gymnast supporting the other gymnast on the side and cheering them on. And I thought that was super cool to see, was that point of view of the athletes cheering the others on.
I agree. That was very inspiring and impressive to see such support at that level because they are elite Olympic athletes.
Yeah.
I'll jump to the next highlight. It's about the sleep habits, and we are going to speak about the beds here, Olympic beds, in the Olympic Village a little bit, some
Yep.
medicine here, but it's related to one of the most important performance factor, having a good sleep. So studies show sleep plays a significant impact on an athlete's performance. Among the areas most impacted by sleep deprivation are things like decision making, critical thinking, according to a 2023 study by researchers at the University of Pennsylvania. One Stanford University study documented a 9% increase in shooting percentages among basketball players who increased their amount of sleep over 5 to 7 week stretch. Another study showed that negative impact insufficient sleep can have a cognitive function, muscle growth, metabolism, hormonal secretion, to name a few. You may check out our episodes 3 and 9 to get practical tips for mastering your sleep. And now we mentioned how important is sleep. It's important for the Olympic athletes. They are not robots. And despite the importance of sleep on the performance at this year's Olympics, athletes had challenges to get a good night's rest because of the cardboard beds. The environmentally friendly recycled cardboard beds was first seen in Tokyo, and they made a comeback in Paris this year and it caused mixed reviews from the athletes. When I looked at the news, for example, the Australian water polo player Tilly Kearns called the mattress rock hard in a TikTok video. Kearns' roommate also declared her back is about to fall off after sleeping on it for a night. Kearns revealed her team manager got her and her teammates a thick mattress topper. Company, yes, they found their solution, but that may not be the case for some of the athletes. I also saw one Italian athlete, I forgot his name. I think he was one of the gold medalists. He was sleeping on the garden outside of the Olympic Village, where he found the beds and maybe the rooms uncomfortable. The company who made the bed said that their bed differs from the traditional mattresses, which was obvious, and they didn't contain any springs or foam. And they said that they collaborated with sleep experts and athletes to optimize the performance enhancing benefits of sleeping on their mattresses. I guess prior to the Olympics, they might have anticipated that there may be issues, and that's why they established a mattress fitting center in the Olympic Athletes Village for a personalized consultation, which uses their AI-based app to analyze and recommend the best configuration for the body type and needs of the athletes. Ukraine's Yaroslava Makuchik, if I pronounce it well, she is a high jumper, and she's also women's high jump world record holder. She won the gold medal at the 2024 Summer Olympics. Another sleep story after the beds, she was seen jumping into her sleeping bag in between competitions. So imagine how she could fit into sleep while she was in the stadium. So that was very impressive. Sleeping stories from athletes. Check out episode 3 and 9. We got really good tips on you how to sleep like an Olympian, but nothing about the cardboard beds.
I saw a couple Olympians also talking about not having AC in a lot of the rooms. So the importance of temperature regulation so that you can sleep well and making sure that it's cold enough. And so that some of the athletes were saying, on top of the beds being hard, the temperature was warm. And so that also plays a role in sleep, which we discuss very good health tips and just showing the importance of sleep for athletes. On the next topic, I think we're going to change, and this is one that's close to both of us being sports pharmacists, and our dedication to making sure that we have a clean sport and that athletes are competing on equal grounds. And so there was a lot of news coming out, especially after the pool sessions, about the Chinese swimmer controversy. And so the Chinese swimming team was at the center of a controversy that basically involved the whole international sport, and that it revealed that nearly half of the group that was sent to Beijing in the Tokyo Olympics had tested positive months earlier for a banned performance enhancing substance. And the swimmers had been cleared by the Chinese anti-doping agency shortly before the Tokyo Games, after it ruled that the positive test for the banned heart drug timetazine, which is listed as a metabolic stimulator and is banned by WADA both in and out of competition because it's believed to help with endurance and recovery time after training. And they were cleared because the result was, they determined, was of contamination likely from the hotel restaurant. And WADA, so the World Anti-Doping Agency, accepted the assessment without appeal. Concern only deepened after WADA acknowledged a separate 2022 case in which 2 Chinese swimmers tested positive for trace amounts of another banned substance, methandroidone, which is an anabolic steroid. And these athletes were provisionally suspended, but later cleared of a violation by, again, the Chinese anti-doping agency, citing contamination linked to food per WADA. The U.S. USADA, so the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency CEO, he issued a statement on behalf of USADA requesting formal transparency from WADA and the assessment of Chinese swimmers. So this case is still ongoing and something we need to keep an eye on, because we did see in some of the pool events the male Chinese swimmers setting world records and beating a couple athletes by larger margins than what's normally seen. So there is a lot of questions about this contamination versus doping. And I think there's a lot more that will come out and be uncovered as we get out of the Olympic season.
Well, some of the doping scandals are still ongoing, and we are just watching and observing as lessons learned, but we really wish for fair play and clean sports from all countries, in Olympics, outside of Olympics, and throughout all the competitions.
Yeah.
Let's continue with another inspiring story from Olympics. One of the highlights, having athletes competing when they were pregnant, were really, really inspiring. When an Egyptian fencer picked up her sabre and an Azerbaijani archer steadied her bow, there was one thing Paris Olympic spectators may not have immediately noticed. They were both pregnant. Though Nada Hafez, the Egyptian fencer, did not walk away with a fencing medal, she said her Paris journey served as a proof to herself that she could surmount challenges, as well as being a positive example for her soon-to-be-born child and a message for other women. Very inspiring, I guess. You don't have any obstacles to become an Olympian. I was checking some news about this inspiring story, and Havas posted on her Instagram that she was carrying a little Olympian one for 7 months, hours after she had reached the round of 16 in women's sabre. Hafez told her baby and she had their fair share of challenges, both physical and emotional, training camp, Olympic trials, all during the pregnancy. That's why she said the roller coaster of pregnancy is tough on its own, but having to fight to keep the balance of life and sports was nothing short of strenuous. I guess that's a particular exercise itself.
Yeah.
She was not sick. She was just pregnant, and she showed real strength, I guess, to all athletes and to the Olympic world. And also, Azerbaijan's Yaylegül Ramazanova was eliminated in the archery individual round of 16, but the experience validated her efforts too. When I checked, there are no rules regarding pregnancy in the Olympics, and it must be the case that Hafez trained and competed under the supervision of a good specialist. And a very good example from this sport, from this story on the spirit of sports, she announced her pregnancy. Hafez announced her pregnancy after the competition, so she didn't want to influence her opponent during the competition. So that was also very impressive.
I thought that was pretty impressive to see, and pretty inspiring that they competed at that level and all they went through to both have hopefully have healthy babies soon, but also to be able to compete in the Olympics. I thought that was pretty impressive on both of those women's parts. I'm going to kind of change pace here with another story. And this one was, and we started hearing a little bit more about it as we got outside of the Olympics, as basically that COVID was running through the Olympic village and many athletes were coming down with illnesses. And so probably the one that was highlighted the most was, at least in the US, was Noah Lyles. And he basically competed for Team USA with COVID and won the bronze in the men's 200. He had competed a few nights before in the men's 100 and won. But he later posted after the 200 meters that he felt he was successful in Paris, and he did win gold in the men's 100, despite what he has had as a lot of health issues of asthma, allergies, dyslexia, ADD, anxiety, and depression. And he shared a very inspirational message emphasizing that personal obstacles do not define one's potential. And I found that pretty inspiring. I thought also on the same lines of Suni Lee. Obviously won the hearts of everybody in Tokyo, but after Tokyo, went to compete in the NCAA in the US, and in 2023 found out she had two rare incurable kidney diseases, and she was lucky to have an incredible medical team surrounding her as she was treated. During the treatment, noted that she gained about 40 pounds in 2023 due to the different medications she was giving and unable to train, and being able to try and how to come back from that. And they did a couple interviews I saw on how it changes as a gymnast, changes your body's, not so it changes your look, but she was more concerned on how it changes on how it feels to do different movements, and how she worked back from gaining her strength back, her endurance, and kind of the comeback from her kidney disease with her medical team. And in one of the interviews after winning a medal, she did quote that she was very, very thankful for her medical team that helped support her to get through this. So it was I thought that both of those stories were pretty inspiring of coming back over some different hurdles for athletes.
Well, I'm going to continue with some magazine again about the Seine River safety / cleanliness /
oh yeah,
due to unhygienic conditions. They have invested more than $1 billion to clean the river. I guess even the mayor of Paris jumped into the river to show that it's clean and safe to compete in the river. But it resulted 2 days of cancelled training and the postponed men's race. The Olympic triathlon went ahead with just a few days of off schedule. And the athletes swam in the river Seine, allowing city leadership to say that they had won their bet on the race. And the decision to hold some swimming events in the famous river that splits Paris raised eyebrows when it was first announced. Swimming in the Seine River has been illegal for a century, but in their desire to put the host city on full display, organizers worked up a plan to clean up the river so the world's best athletes could use it during Paris 2024. The race went off and had drama to boot. Frances Cassandre Bergrand eventually was crowned Women's Triathlon Olympic champion on home soil, roared across the finish line by a boisterous French crowd. Later, it was reported that some of the athletes felt ill. Ireland's 23-year-old Daniel Wiffen, who swam in marathon event, swimming marathon, had to drop out of carrying his country's flag in the closing ceremony because of a viral gastrointestinal infection. Again, Claire Michel, a 35-year-old Belgian triathlete, was hospitalized with an E. coli infection the day after the event, and 3 German, 2 Portuguese, 2 Swiss, and 1 Norwegian athletes also felt ill after their events. The Paris Organizing Committee said it was not aware of any established link between the athletes getting sick and the Seine's water quality. Public health experts say testing water only for bacteria Escherichia coli, E. coli, means waterborne viruses are overlooked.
Too many people fell sick afterwards, and I actually had missed the news about that it's illegal to swim in that for so long. Like, that just makes you question. I mean, in a boat is one thing, which was cool, but like having athletes swim in that and then so many coming sick afterwards makes you start to wonder, like, question that.
Yeah, I mean,
but I'm glad it sounds like everybody is at least recovered from that. Yeah. So sorry to hear for those that did suffer illnesses, because GI issues, I feel like, are the worst in the world.
Yeah,
but
give us some good news, Jess.
So on good notes, so again, athletes coming back. So Djokovic won gold after knee surgery. So we saw him wearing, strapping up over a surgically repaired meniscus. Djokovic defeated longtime rival Nadal in their very anticipated second round matchup. And he was tested, but both cruised through the rest of the week and faced Spain's Carlos Alcaraz in the final match and a rematch of Wimbledon. And Djokovic secured the gold medal and got to win in full sets. So it was cool to see. He had surgery. He had torn his meniscus back in June of 2024 in the Roland Garros. And, there was a lot of question at that point, like, was he going to have surgery? Was he not? What was this going to do to his career? And they did come back and say he went under arthroscopic surgery a few days after consulting with orthopedic doctors from around the world. And they found basically a unanimous decision that he should be operated on arthroscopically and that his recovery time would be much quicker. So interesting, to see somebody come back from surgery that quick and still win gold, because that's definitely probably might be, that's one of the things that he didn't have on his list was Olympic gold. So pretty cool that he was able to come back from that.
My story is an athlete going into injury, and I hope he could come back. He's one of my also personal hero, Eliud Kipchoge of Kenya. He is the 2-time Olympic marathon champion in Rio 2016 and Tokyo 2020. He was unable to finish the Olympic marathon in Paris. It was a shocking situation, but he handled the failure very, very elegantly. He said it was a tough day at the office. I really like that statement. And he decided to end his marathon career. Why he didn't finish, why it's part of our medical stories. He said he had back pain and about around 20 kilometers, and decided not to finish the race because he couldn't get away from the pain, and he tried to get out of the race. He walked for 2 kilometers and he had more than 300 people walking with him, his supporters. He's a GOAT, greatest. And I saw he was giving away his shirt, socks, shoes, even his race number. He waited until the escort cars arrive. So he was the last person to finish the race. So it was an elegant way of finishing. We are following up his news. What is going to happen with him? Whether he'll maybe go back to competing, we never know. But according to his announcements, I guess he's going to be more like a trainer for future marathoners.
Okay.
But it was sad to see he was a DNF. He couldn't finish.
I know. I feel like, but what a way if you, instead of just going out in the middle, like I feel like that was a pretty classy way of, hey, I'm going to give back to the people that have supported me and finish walking with them. I thought that was pretty cool. Like you don't see a lot of athletes do that.
Yeah,
So
that's why he's
I,
the greatest.
yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't follow marathon a lot, but that I did see that story and I was like, that's really impressive. So, watching him walk with the escort cars behind him to the finish line. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think, I mean, this Paris gave us so much from broken bones to Olympic gold medals. I mean, the journey of resiliency and recovery is a narrative that captures all of us, athletes, ourselves, people who aren't even athletes, I think are inspired by the stories that we hear out of the Olympics. There's so many athletes who surmount the challenges of injuries and showcase not only physical prowess, but also mental toughness, holistic well-being. Many athletes accredit to, you know, focusing on nutrition and sleep and mindset and the whole athlete themselves, but also the relentless pursuit of excellence. These guys are pushing themselves for goals and working so hard. I just find the Olympics to be inspiring, and I wish they were on all the time because I never know what to do after the Olympics are over.
Don't worry, the Olympics came to an end, but soon on August 28th, the Paralympics will kick off.
Yay!
Yes, we will be following the Paralympics closely, and we are going to continue our special series with Paralympics this time. We would like you to stay tuned because we have some exciting episodes coming from there. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Performance Prescription Lab podcast. If you enjoyed this discussion, please subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, and share the podcast with others.
Yeah. As sports pharmacists, our mission is to provide accurate and evidence-based information to optimize your health and performance. When it comes to your health and well-being choices, consult your pharmacist or physician, prioritize safely, and always make informed decisions. Thank you for joining us today on the Performance Prescription Lab podcast. Until next time, stay resilient. Let setbacks become stepping stones on your path to triumph.